Hi, I'm Samantha of Goddess Awakening. I'm here to hold a safe space and share with you the true and authentic stories of how we got here. Empowering women, elevating for all. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Goddess Awakening. I have two guests today, and it is in person, which if you listen to the podcast, you know I have a lot of friends from out of town, but I do have some friends in Oklahoma City, believe it or not. So welcome, friends.
Hello. Glad to be here today.
Yeah. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves a little bit?
Kata chia.
Chikashanumpa okano sa hochafoet. Ishkia pilla. Nahola emanumpa okano sa hochafoet. Taloa wolf. In the Chickasaw language, they call me They Help Mothers. In English, you can call me Taloa wolf. Chikasha michichata michichaki saya. Elasha katima. I am Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Cherokee. We are still here. Kaniki motoka.
Kaniki matoka. Nina toka nawi e kat tekpat. I'm a white lady, but I'm really into spirituality. I have children who are indigenous Mexican, and I am very passionate about language preservation and culture. And although that's not my culture, I'm really working my hardest to learn Nahuatl and to be able to pass that down to my kids. And I'm also working to be just like a safe space in the community that, you know, promotes authenticity and safety, but also like a decolonized perspective, hopefully, you know, in our circles and things like that to provide something different for the community.
So what languages were you speaking? Or was it multiple? Or
Yeah, I was speaking the Chickasaw language, Chickashanumpa, and you were speaking Nahuatl, which is the Nahuatl language.
Yep. I wish I knew another language a little more so I could have conversations, like side conversations that I see you guys have sometimes in ceremony. I'm like, wonder what they're saying. But Brian wants me to learn German because he's fluent in German. So he said so we can talk shit together. So yeah, I feel like it's cool having other languages. And that's definitely not languages that even in Oklahoma, where you would think that you hear it more often, but you actually don't. And I actually am born and raised in Oklahoma, but my family is all from the East Coast. But growing up in Oklahoma, you would think I would learn more about the indigenous culture and different languages, but I definitely did not. So I thought that was pretty interesting that I feel like I've learned more from you all so far, even in the short time that I've known you guys. So thank you for opening that space where I can educate myself and learn a little bit more and kind of tiptoe into the world that I feel like I never really got to learn about in Oklahoma, of all places.
Right. Well, we're excited to have you. I think the reason why you haven't heard it is, like last I heard, we have 35 speakers or less of the Chickasaw language. So it's been a really big passion of mine for the last 8 years. I've been learning. Mm-hmm. You've been learning with me for a couple now. It makes it a lot easier to have somebody in the house and talk with.
It's been like 3 years that we've been learning together. So I feel really blessed to be able to do that. I think I'm learning like 6 languages all at once, which is a lot. But it does make it easier to have people that you can speak with. I think that's like, it's really scary to learn a language, but it's easier if you can speak it with someone, like get it out of your mind.
Are all the languages like very different, or are they kind of similar in ways?
You would be surprised at how much overlap there is, but also they could be vastly different. Like it really just depends. And also there's different dialects within each one. So depending on what side of town you were on and who your family was, you might have had a totally different word for something than somebody else would have.
Right. I think that when you learn languages, it makes you have like this energy of humility because like you're never really going to know.
Right. Well, and it's something that actually makes you learn to be softer with yourself a little bit. You know, I'm an English first speaker. I mess up in English all the time, and I'm never mad at myself. But whenever I'm learning something new, I'm like, oh, man. But I think
the English language is actually so complicated. I've taken lots of years of Spanish. It has never stuck enough where I feel comfortable speaking out loud, but I've also had Spanish teachers that would like shame you for not saying it properly, so that's probably a little bit of why. But that's one thing. I remember one of my awesome Spanish teachers in high school, she was actually from like Spain, and she definitely told us like, okay, the textbook that we're learning from is going to teach you like Mexico Spanish. We're teaching, you know, this is how I speak from a different country, but that also speaks, you know, this language. So like you said, it's kind of, I mean, people from Oklahoma, well, a lot of people don't are surprised to hear that I'm from Oklahoma because I do not have an accent. And I'm like, well, I'm not from tiny town. I'm from like Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So, we're the city people, I guess. But then also my parents are from Pennsylvania, New York. So I think that's also another reason I didn't pick up any kind of accent. But of course, East Coast people have a different accent from people in, Southern Texas, for example. So there's all kinds of like different ways of speaking one language. So it's cool that you can pick up even more languages on top of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What I really like about our circles and gatherings too is a lot of folks show up and feel safe to speak their indigenous languages. And that's something that's been taken from people for a very long time. So like, I think it's really cool to kind of be a part of a movement where we're saying like, please come and speak your languages and share that with us, and just like creating space for that, because I don't know of very many other spaces around in Oklahoma City or really anywhere that's kind of creating space for that. Mm-hmm. So
I love it because learning all the languages, you kind of see what the worldview was of people pre-contact, like what did they hold dear? What was important to them? Or how did they see things by seeing things or whatever? It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of the spaces that you guys host, what kind of things do you do? Which I know, but you can probably tell us a little better.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a doula. I've been a doula for the past 10 years. So for a while. But in 2016, I started hosting talk circles for people. And it was basically for mothers and parents who had experienced birth trauma. So I learned some crazy figure the other day that like somewhere between like 16 and 22% of people who give birth end up with PTSD from the experience. So it's actually like more common than you would think for people to walk out of that really. It's supposed to be like a transformative, healing, amazing experience. And so many people walk away with that, with trauma. So we created a little talk circle space for people to come together and share their experiences and kind of find a pathway to heal that wasn't exactly, medication or traditional counseling or therapy or things like that. And pretty much from that, I've taken that pretty much like a safe space of talk circles and created more opportunities for people to talk about different things, because life is more than just birth. While birth, influences a lot of our healing and what happens to us, we also have opened up space to talk about spirituality and different practices and things like that. So I'd say the biggest thing that we offer is space that's open for people to come and talk and communicate. But we also offer ceremonies and gatherings like sound healing and cacao circles, just like places for people to experience being in like a ceremony together, because I think that is really magical. And that is based basically in like all of our practices. Like all of us as humans have ancestors who practiced animism and different ceremonies and things like that. So like we all have lost that as modern people. And what I want to do is remind everybody that it doesn't matter like what background you come from or who your people or who your ancestors are. Like all of us used to practice ceremony, and the world was a lot cleaner. The world was a lot less polluted. We had a lot less illnesses, and like everything was more in harmony and balance. So my job, or hopefully my goal, is to like create this world or co-create a world where we're all respectful of each other and we remember the importance of ceremony.
If you had to use another word for ceremony, like what would it be?
Ritual.
I'm thinking about like somebody who doesn't have any context about living all of their life in ceremony.
Yeah. So like maybe some people would call like ceremony mindfulness. Maybe that would be another thing. There was a monk named Thich Nhat Hanh, I believe that was his name, and he spoke about mindfulness and like meditation and how every single activity that you do in a day, or every single conversation, like everything as big as like cooking a meal, driving a car, or as little as like brushing your teeth in the morning, like everything could be an opportunity for mindfulness. And so the way that I see that is just like ceremony, like it's really sacred. Like it's something that we should do very intentionally. Like when we talk to people, when we cook food, when we shower or bathe ourselves, like everything should be done with intention. And I feel like our world kind of takes people away from that intention in a way. Like everybody's very busy, has a lot of responsibilities. Everybody's really trying to like pay their bills and everything else. So everybody is kind of feeling like they're rushing around and they're on autopilot and they don't have intentional time for themselves. And I think that when people live in that state, it causes a lot of stress. It causes a lot of fear. It makes people disconnected from their authentic selves. So when you live in a more of like a ceremony type mindset, then you're more mindful about everything. You're mindful about where everything comes from. You're mindful about your interactions and your words and how everything relates to everything else.
Most definitely. And I've never made a good decision out of fear or quickly, you know.
No. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, just put your phone down. Don't respond. Just put it down. Walk away. Do something different. But yeah, for me, your ceremony spaces have been like this new community that I didn't even know existed for me, which has been really cool. Like, obviously, you guys came out to, Goddess Awakening, but then even this event we just had here in Oklahoma City. And then I actually ran into Betty before the event. We just were at the same restaurant, and I was like, oh my gosh, hi, hello. And I was with like all of my Goddess team, and she said that she would be coming that night, and then saw her dancing, and I was like, this is so cool to like see people I didn't even know until, those spaces, coming and enjoying an event that, I don't know if that's a typical event that some people would go to, but it's cool to see like new faces and new people because of that. And I don't know what it is, but the cacao ceremonies for me, like every single one, actually, I have cried hard. But I think, the intention is like, it's a heart opener, right? So I feel my heart I'm a human design reflector. And like, when I learned that about myself, I just bawled my eyes out. I was like, that makes so much sense. Like, wow, okay. Like I can understand that about myself a little bit more. But even just being able to talk in those spaces about like my heart and my intentions, and, people can definitely say whatever they want, but I know deep down, like I always have the best intentions for like everyone involved. So I think that's maybe why I like cry, because I don't really let it out as often as maybe I should. But, those ceremonies for me have been like so relaxing and like comforting. And then I always lay like as close to the singing bowls as I can, because I like to like fully immerse myself all the way. And yeah, I love the guided meditations that you do, are so wonderful. I really need to be better with meditation, but I also have a little bit of like a weird, I don't know if I want to call it a trauma, but it's a little bit of a trauma from someone who was a meditation guy. And so I have some weird attachments to that because of it. However, I also know that like when I'm intentionally like focusing on a guided meditation, especially, like that helps me so much and I can really get into it. But I feel like I need to be better at like not relying on another person or an event or like a special night to do that. Like I need to be more intentional on my own time too, when I need to go to sleep at night and it's like I'm reaching for melatonin. Like it's been crazy the last few months. Like I probably have taken melatonin, 90% of the nights I go to sleep so I can turn my brain off. And it's not always like bad things going on in my brain. It's just like, it's just moving. So I feel like some sort of meditation is what would help me to like be like, okay, you're good. It's time to go to sleep now, and everything's gonna be fine, and there's still tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, if I might suggest, maybe think about having a little ceremony for yourself before you go to sleep, and really just whatever your nighttime routine is, really put intention and thought into it. So whether that's like taking a bubble bath or brushing your teeth, washing your face, you're already doing these things, but just like tell your body and your spirit, like I'm doing these, I'm winding down, I'm going to empty my mind, and I'm going to make myself like ready to go to sleep, and see if it will help, But I don't think you need to do better at anything or more, because I feel like we all are already doing so much. Right. But I think it's easy to kind of fall into that productivity trap of just like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not meditating enough. But, I love holding spaces like that because kind of like, to me, a ceremony is like a space outside of time. Like, do you remember when you're like a little child, maybe 3 or 4 years old, and you just play and forget about all time? And then like 6 hours would pass and you'd be like, I don't even know how that time passed. That's the space that I want to create in a ceremony, where we really just like forget about time and we step into like a different alternate world where time doesn't matter, and where we're just present with ourselves and with the group and with our hearts. And I think in that space of gathering, that's where real transformation happens. And people have like, they let go of a lot of burdens in their heart and in their soul, and they get to relax. They get to like kind of regenerate in a way. But also, I think a lot of the things that we do, people can resource and bring those into their personal practice at home. Yeah,
most definitely. I think that the thing I love the most about our circles is it's almost like you come and you gather and you watch everybody strip down and leave everything at the door. Mm-hmm. And then they get to choose what they're putting back on themselves whenever they leave. They're like, I'll put my shoes on, but everything else can stay here. You know what I mean? So I think it's really good.
Yeah, and it's a really nice, like, especially since you added the like little light cover things. What did you put, fabric up maybe?
Yeah, we put fabric and drape the ceilings, and we have a bunch of soft lights.
Yeah, it's like very like calming and soothing. And then we sing songs that I don't know the words to, but eventually I'll pick them up.
It's all good. Yeah, some of the songs that we sing are songs that we've gotten from other people or teachers or other women in the community. And some of the songs are actually like medicine songs that come from our own practice. And that was a really wild evolution in my spiritual journey, because I felt like this might sound a little bit strange, but I felt like for a long time I had my guides and ancestors telling me like, one day you're going to have these songs and you'll sing them for people and like they're going to help people heal. And I'm like, that's such a weird thing. Where are they going to come from? And then just one day I started hearing people singing to me, and I'm like, oh, those are the songs. So some of those songs actually come from a really deep, sacred place from within myself. So I'm really proud and happy to share those with the group.
Yeah. I will always hum and shake the rattlers while I learn the words. I don't know why like singing is like a thing that makes me anxious sometimes. But looking back, like when I was in church, you know, we don't need to go to church trauma, or we can, but there were some good things about church for me, and like singing was one of them. I love singing in the choirs, and like I remember I had like solos, and like looking back, I'm like, who was that girl? Like I can't even imagine doing that now. It's wild. And I've had a few people be like, you should record like some vocals to make some like music. And I'm like, that would actually be kind of fun, because Brian produces music. So if I had my vocals, and I don't know. But anyway, there were some good parts about church, but obviously lots of not good things about church. So I know we have talked about that actually in some of the circles. Do you guys want to dabble in that space a little bit?
Well, I grew up in, I consider them a cult. They're like a fringe, radical traditional Catholic group. And I escaped. So I really do feel like it was a cult, because kind of I got shunned by a lot of my family and friends and people like that after I left. And so that was a really weird experience. And I feel like pretty much the rest of my adult life for the past 8 or 9 years has been really trying to deconstruct from religion and from the trauma of that experience and the oppression. And I think probably the worst part of being affiliated with that group was just the way that they treated women and like the ideology around women. Like women are not allowed to use birth control or like work outside of the home. They're supposed to stay home with the kids and homeschool, and like all these other things just to touch the surface. But I finally left. And when I left, I realized that I was holding on to that practice and that group of people for so long because I really believed in the ceremony aspect of going to church. And I believed that like the ancient songs that they would sing and the smoke, the incense that they would use, the ritual, like that is real. And then one day I actually went to Tennessee for like a birth worker training, and I found all of these old ladies who were birthy people who understood the ceremony of birth, and they led us through this weekend of ceremony and healing and like movement practices and understanding birth and ourselves better. And I just like left that space. I called my partner at the time and I was like, hey, we're never going back to church again. And they were like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm like better than I've ever been in my whole life. But it was like in that moment that I realized you could have the sacred outside of that church structure. And once I realized that, it was like the missing piece, and I never looked back. But I mean, there were a lot of good things about church. Mostly for me, it helped me develop like a sense of love for mantra and for ceremony, and also for singing with people in a group, because I do think that that's magical. And that's something that I really missed for a long time when I left religion. I just felt like there was nobody to sing with anymore. And I didn't really want to sing old songs. So I kind of was left in this in-between space where I'm like, I don't have any people. I don't have any community. And I know that I can share with people and I can sing with people, but like, who am I going to sing with and what am I going to sing? So it's been like a long evolution for sure.
Enter the ecstatic voice circle.
Yes, that's coming.
I think it's really necessary for the community, because one of the things that I've learned just by being out, not just at our events, but other people's events, is maybe it wasn't church that made people not want to sing or talk anymore. Just society can do that to you. It just takes one person telling you, you sound horrible, that you're never going to do that again. But being able to come together and just be silly and play with it until you feel comfortable. I mean, I feel like the whole point of life is to live it, right? And like the people who are the best at living it are like kids. So like we just need to embody that playfulness, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, again, going back to that space when we were little and there was no time and we just enjoyed ourselves. I think if we can tune into that feeling as adults, that it would absolutely change our lives. And I know that it changed my life. So I feel like it actually saved my life. And that's something that I feel indebted to the community now. I feel like I have to hold space for people to live outside of time, to just, like you said, set off their burdens and really feel who they are, like authentically at a soul level. I think that transforms people.
I knew that this was going to be a good thing whenever we were at Goddess and I stepped out of the tent. It was so hot. And I was like, man, I might just go back to the hotel. And then I start seeing everybody come out. And they have all the glowy things, all the flying things, all the flashy things. And they're just out there having a blast. Mm-hmm. Like for that moment, whatever has gone on in their life before does not exist. Whatever might happen when they go home on Tuesday doesn't exist. And in that moment, it's just enjoyment, pure enjoyment. I saw somebody swinging around a dragon. I was like, this is incredible.
I think that's why I really fell in love with festivals, because it's like, especially camping festivals, because you go out there and you're like, well, my first camping festival was Bonnaroo. So this is like 80,000 people, you know? So it is a whole thing. But it was just like, okay, we're going to go and see how it is. I don't know. And you can just literally do like whatever you want and like roam around or listen to music or go eat a piece of pizza or grab a beer or whatever you want to do. You can just do it. You can take a nap in the lawn. I've done that many a times at Bonnaroo, which is like wild to think about, but I've done it many, many times and felt like safe about it. And that's the cool thing about festivals too, is like the community. So like if you forgot something or you need something, just like ask your neighbor or ask someone around you. Someone's got chapstick or, you know, water or whatever you need. It's just like the community portion, and then just like the play and the dancing. And of course, like seeing your favorite headliners is really cool too. Like I've seen some huge acts at Bonnaroo, and that's been really cool because you can sing along with all these songs that you've listened to before. So I think that's why I really like fell in love with festivals and camping, because you're just like, you're in it and you don't want to go. You don't want to go anywhere else. You want to stay. I remember one year, one of my friends with me needed tampons, and they have a general store on site, but they were charging like $1 a tampon or something wild. And this is like 2012. And I was like, no. So we got her a ride. We went to the Walmart outside, and I was like, can we go back now? I don't want to be out here. I don't like it out here in the streets. Like, take me back to the festival. But it's like such a community feeling of like just being surrounded by like all these magical things happening all around you. Oh, I'm so excited. I've just talked to someone today, and her name is the Glitter Nymph, and she makes biodegradable glitter, and she has all these like cutesy things, and she wants to make like this mushroom entrance, and you go in and she'll make you all cute and glittery, and we're just gonna have so many cool experiences this year. But I think that's the fun part. It's like being a kid. It's just what all it boils down to is like, let's play, let's have fun and not worry about all the other things. Especially right now, it's just like I can't even turn on the television. It just immediate anxiety. I'm like, no, just if you're watching the news, I'm leaving the room because I cannot. It's just nonstop. Like there's nothing good happening on the news.
They say play is the opposite of trauma. So get out there and play, folks. I was going to say, well, we were talking about crying. Sorry to circle it back to that.
No.
But I could have sworn you just told me recently that there was like benefits to crying for like cortisol and like releasing stress.
You're going to have to fact check me on this one. But I did just come across some evidence that says that when we cry, that there is cortisol in our tears. So that could be the body's way of kind of like releasing stress and releasing cortisol. And I think about, a lot of times when we cry, it's unexpected and it's because we're sad or something heavy has happened. But sometimes there's like these deep healing cries that happen when we just have realized something deep about ourselves, but those still release that stress hormone from our bodies. So I thought that was really incredible that crying can be really healing.
Cut to me crying at Goddess whenever people were performing because I was like, this is just so awesome. Wasn't sad at all. I was very happy.
Lots of happy tears. I was almost crying on the way here just driving. Like, so many cool things are happening around and like all the awesome people that we're getting connected with. And we just got to announce that we're moving to Tulsa, which is super exciting. And like, I was so anxious, like, oh, what if everyone's so mad at us that we're moving to? It was like, no. Only just positive, so many good things. I had random people from, Tulsa reaching out to me and asking all kinds of questions. They want to bring their 4 daughters. Like, I was like, this is perfect. So I was super happy that we got to announce that. And then it was like, I've got some deep healing things to work on around Tulsa specifically because that is my home. And that's where I lived in the Tulsa area until I was 18 and went to college at OU in Norman. And my mom, who I haven't spoken to in, 2.5 years at this point, literally reached out to me like last week. And well, first my aunt messaged me and was like, hey, can your mom have your phone number? I was like, I don't know. And I was like, you know what? Okay, yes. And she sent me a message and it basically was the message that I thought I would never receive from my mom. And I definitely cried a lot and I have not responded yet. I feel like I'm going to, but I'm just gonna like take my time on it. But like the timing of like her reaching out and then us announcing Tulsa and like locking the contract in, which is where my home was with my mom. And there's a whole thing with my stepdad and I wouldn't go to Tulsa for a long time because I had said out loud, if I saw him, I would probably run him over with my car. But he has died, so he's no longer around, thank goodness. So yeah, I feel like I definitely have like this like extra special like attachment to Tulsa and like there's lots of really wonderful memories and there's lots of really, really like some of the worst memories of my life are there. So I feel like it's like this special, let's all come heal together and I'm a part of that too. Like I don't just throw the festival, like I'm getting all of the healing experiences from it as well. But yeah, I don't know where it's going with that, but
it's a full circle moment. It's great.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I think life always gives us these little opportunities to kind of circle back and to look at old energies in a new way. And it sounds like you're doing that. And like it can be hard. So I just want to be here to be like, be calm, be gentle with yourself, be compassionate, be slow. Yeah, that's a lot to do.
But it's only an hour and a half away from here. So that's going to be super nice. So all the Oklahoma City friends can come. And then obviously lots of Tulsa people. And like the Tulsa community is as a whole, not just like the EDM community, but just as a whole is like really amazing. So I'm excited to like connect with more people in the community and like be really intentional about like including Tulsa with the festival.
Yeah, I think every time I go to Tulsa, I am pleasantly surprised. I went to Mother's Road Market last time that I was there, and it's like this little building warehouse with like a bunch of little food vendors and like stalls, like street vendors. Like it's a really cool experience. And I just like came home to Oklahoma City and was like, wow, why don't we have anything like that here? Like, where are our artisans? Where is our support for our people who are, little crafters and little food makers and things like that? But yeah, Tulsa is a really cool community. I feel like they really care about small mom and pop businesses. And, big corporations are not where it's at. Like, it's us small mom and pop people who are going to help America and help all of us. So I think that we all as a community need to do better to just support those little people. And I love what Tulsa is doing. So I'm very excited to get more time and exposure in Tulsa. And I'm not going to lie, I'm probably going to go back to Mother's Road Market when I'm there and get some barbecue.
Is it like a place? Because I don't know why in my head it was like an event, but it's a place.
No, it's a place, like a big warehouse with all these little kitchens.
Cute.
So and they have like little tables and things and places to eat. So it's like barbecue and Mexican food and I don't know, sushi, like all these different vendors. But I just thought that was so cool. Yeah. There's a lot of barriers too to like starting a kitchen because you have to have so many, zoning things. Like you have to have so many sinks and all these technical things to make the kitchen safe. So like for a small business, if your passion is just making food, that's a really high barrier to like find a commercial kitchen. So I just thought that was such a neat little project.
Very cool. I'll have to check that out. Love that. Yeah, I was just telling you guys before I got here, I stopped in at the new thrift store, which is owned by the YWCA. But they are doing a $5 fill your bag. So go support them. But they're on 39th Street. So lots of cool businesses over there as well. But yeah, we love supporting the local people. And I've always been a Walmart hater. So that one's always been easy for me to not shop at. I don't know why. I just always have been. And then I really haven't ever, I will say I have had Amazon Prime before. Not, I'm very shameful of that. But I actually canceled it like 6 months ago because I was just like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I was most disappointed recently by Target, I will say. So I have been trying to avoid Target now. And then Aldi also dropped their DEI regulations, which I'm like, gosh darn it.
Look at that again. Look at it again because it seems like they are not talking about it, but they haven't dropped it. It's like it's still there. Like if you look in their employee policies and things like that. So just look again for Aldi and don't count them out yet.
Okay, we're not taking out Aldi yet.
But I feel you. We shop.
Costco's the way to go.
Costco, yeah. We shop a lot at Super Cow. That's like one of those real big Asian supermarkets that we have here in Oklahoma City.
Is that the South Side one, 240?
No.
It's on 25th Street, actually. I think 25th and Western or something, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. And then we go to Morelos, Supermercado.
Always Morelos.
And there's a bunch of different locations for them, but like it's a supermarket, but they have good tamales. Okay. So they have some good food.
Yeah, we were like, where do we go grocery shopping now? Which there's obviously tons of options. We went to Crest. I don't know if we're still liking Crest so far. Everything is okay with Crest. It's obviously not like locally owned. But yeah, I tried to go to the farmers markets as much as I can, like on Saturdays. But if you forget to go on Saturday, you can't really go till next Saturday. Right. So
yeah, it requires us being conscious about what we're doing. And that is really hard because we're already doing so much. So it's a lot.
Yeah. And being available on a Saturday between these hours is a whole thing. But we do love the farmers market. I think it was last year we went like to a different farmers market around here like every weekend. So we could just like kind of test it out and see what we liked. I think honestly, as far as like having a variety of like grocery items, not just like cute snacks and, cool things you can buy, like actual vegetables and fruit. I think Norman Music Festival, sorry. We love Norman Music Festival too, but Norman, their farmers market, I think had the best variety of just like anything that you wanted to eat. Edmonds is okay, but I feel like they mostly had like meat and then a few vegetable options. And then the OKC one, it's awesome too. And there's some really cool people there, but I feel like it's lacking on like the actual like produce stuff, like the necessities, you know what I mean? So
I feel like we've seen a lot of cool snacks there, but there wasn't a lot of produce the last time we went either.
Yeah,
but I did see some guys making some smoked chicken or something.
Yes, those guys.
That was real good.
They were good salesmen.
I know who you're talking about because I got their chicken like sausage things last time. They were smoked. Oh, those were good.
They were good.
Those were good. They were expensive, but they were good.
I'm here for it. They put a lot of love into those sausages.
Yeah, no, they were super yummy. So yeah, kind of same thing. It's just like, what if I just need some like tomatoes, They did have eggs. I looked at those. This was 2 weeks ago, but they were $7 for the dozen. So, I mean,
on par with the supermarket.
Exactly. Right.
Maybe a little cheaper depending on where you shop, you know?
I've been keeping an eye out on the eggs because that, for some reason, that was like the whole hot topic that we were looking at before elections. And it's like, watch the egg prices. I'm like, okay, I'm watching, and they're going up.
I'm watching
They're
chickens.
still going up.
I'm like, man, how many chickens could I fit in my city backyard?
So you have chickens? No, you want
I'm
chickens.
thinking about
Yeah.
My little sister has chickens, but she lives an hour away. So like we'd have to like meet up halfway or something.
Yeah.
You got the goods?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, you could probably make a lot of money off a few chickens.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, especially if you free range them, get them to eat all your ticks and bugs.
Yeah. Those are expensive eggs. Those are the real good eggs.
But I think the farm eggs taste different too, you know? I think that all of our life is so unintentional, including the way that we keep animals and eggs and things like that. And those eggs that are not cage free, like they do taste different.
I remember, I wish I could remember, it was like the big movie, you know, at the time when I was like high school, beginning of college, so like 2010-ish time. But it was like one of the ones where they like go and show you like how terrible we are to animals that we eat. And I've been vegetarian for like a month once, and then I've gone to a few retreats that is like full vegan, like raw vegan, no caffeine, like very, very strict. And I've survived, and I did feel better. But I feel like for me, I'm like, I really like foods. So I feel like for me, there needs to be a balance of like pleasure and like nutrition, which I can definitely be better. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, for some reason, eggs specifically always freak me out. I'm like, what is an egg? You know, what really is that? What is that? You know?
I feel like I'll tell you later. You don't want to know.
Well, I mean, I do know. That's why I'm like, why is this a thing? You know, it's like, I was thinking it was like a chicken abortion. I mean, it's technically not, but
It's just their cycle.
yeah. So I don't know. It's just weird thinking about like, but you know, I love a good steak. So I don't know.
I feel like everything has to be in balance. And I do think when we eat animals who've been treated poorly, like we take on almost like that abuse and we put that in our energetic systems. So, you know, as much as you can, you have to try to be more conscious about where you're consuming and like where you're getting meat and things like that. But like also, like I said, a lot of us are just struggling right now to even be alive. So you got to do what you can do. But I think like really what all of us little people need to do is do our part to try to keep those corporations accountable. Like there are people and corporations who are making decisions to harm the animals and to keep them in ways that are not nice. So like that needs to be addressed. And everybody wants to say it's a money issue and this is like a cheaper way of doing it. But like if you talk to anybody who knows anything about permaculture or like indigenous ways of keeping land and animals, like they did not treat the world or animals that way and they were doing just fine. So I think we can do it differently if we really hold those people accountable.
Right. Yeah, I definitely would love to have like a garden again. I think that'd be super nice. Like I remember growing up, we had like not a big garden, but enough to have like fruits and vegetables. Well, vegetables whenever we wanted for the most part, like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, jalapenos, just kind of like the basic ones. But I just can't eat a tomato the same way versus one from a garden. Like it just tastes so much better. It's crazy to me.
I have heard people say that if you're out there in the soil and in the land, that the microbiomes and the little bugs that are in the soil kind of create the plants and the food with more minerals like that are aligned to your body. So like if you're out digging in the dirt actually communicates with you in your germ biome in your body and gives you what you need. And I've also heard it's the same thing with like weeds. So if you have a certain type of weed that keeps popping up on your land and you're always walking around barefoot, it might be the earth trying to tell you like, hey, maybe you need this. Maybe you have some sort of mineral deficiency. That happened to me one time. This is a really weird story, but I have a million of them. But I was having a really low point in my life. I think I was maybe like a year after leaving religion, organized religion, and I started to have all these health issues like autoimmune problems, and my liver was shutting down. Like I went to a doctor and they're testing my liver enzymes. They're like, listen, we really want to put you on biologics for your autoimmune problem. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, just give me some time. Like we'll come in and check in like 2 or 3 months or something and see what happens. So I'm going home and I'm like drinking tea and I'm looking outside of my window and I just see all these dandelions in the yard and my body is like, put that in your mouth now. And I was like, what? And then I like was looking at it online, and apparently people eat dandelions to help their liver. And it's like this whole thing, like people eat the bitter greens and they eat the flowers, and that is actually a weed that like will nourish your body. So I did a lot of different health things. One of them was actually eating the dandelions. I did like fasting and things like that. And like, I'm happy to say I got my liver numbers down to like a safe place, and I'm not having as many autoimmune issues. But I think the earth really does try to take care of us. And sometimes those weeds that keep popping up are there for a reason.
Most definitely. We have shepherd's purse that just grows outside the house. And that's been a herb that is, I like venture to say, like been life-saving for me. I have really rough, really heavy cycles. And what could have put me in the hospital is now not a problem. So
Right.
I really appreciate the weeds that pop up.
Yeah. And I feel like that's another thing that humans have lost. Like our ancient people all knew how to use weeds and herbs to heal and to help, you know, with cycles, but really with any kind of health problem that could go wrong with you. I think a lot of things go wrong in your body because you are having a deficiency of some sort. So like all of the earth is like trying to communicate with you and trying to get you healthy and healed and balanced. And I think if we just would slow down long enough to pay attention to the weeds and the birds and the seasons, like our lives would be a lot better.
Yeah, that ability to be quiet, to listen is very hard. It's very hard to sit in silence and stillness if all you've ever been around is chaos and fast-paced highways and all of these things. So.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of folks are scared of silence too, maybe a little.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's very healing.
I feel like herbs is definitely something that I have always wanted to know more about, but it feels like very overwhelming because there's so much. There's so much. So it's like, where do you even start with that?
Yeah, if you want to start, a lot of traditional people believe if you make a good relationship with 5 weeds that grow in your neighborhood or grow around your land, that you can heal pretty much anything. So like you don't have to import these herbs from India or China or some other place because those are just weeds that grow in India and China. So like you could just take some time to study whatever herbs, you know, show up with you or whatever herbs that you keep seeing. Like if you keep seeing a little flower or a little weed, you know, just there's little plant identification apps that you can get on your phone, take a picture of it. Those are not 100%, but that's a really good way to start. I know that there's a lot of local herbalists that'll do like weed walks where you can go around and like they help you identify things, but you don't have to start by learning like every herb or everything. Just try to learn 3 or 5 that grow around you. And then also just be aware, like if you're harvesting them, you shouldn't harvest weeds that are close to the roadside because the government sprays the roads and kind of like all the grass that's by the road. So it's not safe to do that. And you also don't want to harvest weeds from your own yard if your neighbors are spraying like weed killer or Roundup because the weed killer will kill us too. So if you're going to like forage for things, you have to find a safe place to do that. But it's easier, I would say, to make a relationship and to actually like, you know, build this way of communicating and like understanding the plants and just like look at them in all of their seasons and like learn to identify them in like spring and summer and fall and winter and see how they grow and they'll nourish you. But I think it really is just being gentle and not, you know, being slow and building that relationship slowly.
Yeah, it makes me want to like go for a walk at one of the parks and just see what's out there. Because I live in an apartment, which is a whole thing. And I'm thankful for my home and I miss my backyard all the time. But there's lots of parks around Oklahoma City area that I can go walk around and see what's out there. So maybe next time. But yeah, having like a guide on like a weed. When you say weed in Oklahoma, I think people think marijuana, but yes. we're not talking about marijuana this time. But we love marijuana too. Thank you. But just like having someone like walk around, be like, oh, here's this and this and this. I think that'd be super cute. That sounds like a very wholesome activity.
It's very wholesome, and I think probably most of the herbalists that I know who do stuff like that are like very wholesome grannies. I know there's one woman named Joan Cowden, and she does like herbalism classes and things like that. But she's an older lady who's been doing it for a very long time. So I would trust her, especially in the Oklahoma area. But yeah, I mean, there's books you can get about identification of plants or those apps are really helpful.
Yeah, I was using Google Lens, and maybe it takes a little bit of researching to make sure you picked up the right weed. But yeah, I think it's really good. One of the things that I was thinking about was there was a story that some herbalist told us where somebody thought that they had picked wild carrot and they made this beautiful stew. And it turns out it was poison hemlock. So if you're not certain about whatever weed it is, don't put it in your mouth.
Yeah, don't do
Oh my
that.
gosh. I think that's the one that the poison hemlock that looks just like another.
Like wild carrot.
Is it wild carrot that it looks like? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the herbalists say don't eat anything that looks like a carrot unless you planted it because you just don't know.
Because there's also ones that are like poisonous to like dogs, for example, but not to humans. And that's just like really confusing. I'm like, why aren't we all the same? Right. But you have to like be careful with your dogs on walks sometimes because you're like, I don't know what that is. But and then I remember when I was young, we had a big backyard we can go play around in, and I always got poison ivy. Like I would break out everywhere, like have to be like sent home from school, like it was a whole thing. And the pink, I can't remember what it was called. You put it
calamine.
Yes, yeah, that was all over my body. It was like a whole, but I don't know if I became like immune to it because of those experiences, but I have not had poison ivy like ever since I was like 6 years old. So I don't know what that's about, but
it's like a sensitivity, and I'm not sensitive to it. Like I'm not allergic to poison ivy. I used to go rolling it when I was a kid, and my uncles and things would be like, "That's poison ivy," and I'd be like, "Ah," and it just doesn't bother me.
I'm extremely sensitive to poison ivy, and you just talking about it made my eyes itch. So
yeah, ooh, it used to get crazy, but yeah, it hasn't been a thing in forever. Or maybe I just haven't stepped in it, and I don't know.
Maybe you're lucky, or maybe you have a tolerance, but let's not find out.
Yeah, no, I'm just not gonna risk it. I wanted to circle back. We were talking about baby things. So I myself did not have any children, and I'm 33. And I think it was just two days ago, I was like talking to Brian, and I'm like, I think I'm actually gonna be one of the women who like doesn't have kids. Like I think that's gonna be me. And it's been something that I've like battled with since I can remember being 18 years old. And for something in my head told me like I'm not able to have kids, but I don't know if that's actually what it was. But so far, nothing. I've never had any children or accidental children or anything has ever accidentally happened, and I have not been the most safe all the time. So, but I'm like, I think I'm actually going to be one of those women who doesn't have kids. I'm like, whoa, like that. Growing up, I was, in church too. So I'm taught you go to college, you get married, you have kids. That's what you do. I did the first two, and I also got a divorce. So that was a big thing. But I don't have any kids, and I feel like I'm to the point where I'm like, I think I'm good without it. But I also sometimes have this like, am I going to have FOMO? Because I feel like most mothers at least are always like, this is the greatest experience. You'll never know a love like this. And I'm like, am I missing out on something because I'm not choosing to do that?
They also don't tell you about when it's like 2:30 in the morning and they are literally crying because they haven't slept in 5 days and their body is sore and, everybody is so overwhelmed. And we just like live in a very low nurture society. So I think it's exceptionally difficult to have kids because we were not supposed to have kids in this environment. Like we were not supposed to have kids without aunties and grannies and other people and women there to support us. And that means not just like through the pregnancy or through the birth, but all the way through postpartum, like until your baby is 2 or 3 or walking on their own and having their own kind of little toddler life. Like we do not have enough support. So I think it's not exactly accurate. I think a lot of people like maybe are looking for justification to be like, well, I have kids, so like everybody should have kids because that's just what you do. And I think a lot of people are still stuck in that mindset. And I have 4 kids and I love them all. I think they're wonderful. I'm glad that they exist. But I don't think that the whole ceremony and initiation of birth is necessary to be like a complete human. And I definitely don't think it's for everybody. I think that it should be a really spiritual calling. And unfortunately, I feel like it's not. Like, I feel like a lot of people just kind of like have kids because that's what you do. And then like after you have these kids, it's a whole spiritual experience to go through pregnancy and birth. And then it's a whole spiritual experience to like actually raise these people. And then after you do all that, they just kind of do whatever they want. Like, they literally will turn out however they want. They will have whatever hobbies. They will do whatever they want to do. And you don't have any control over that. And that's totally fine. Like, I'm here for it. I'm along for the ride. I like want to support my kids and see them live whatever life that they want. But I think a lot of people are mistaken about what birth and parenting is really like. Like, it's a spiritual experience and it's a ride, like a roller coaster that you cannot control. So maybe you will have FOMO. That's like, your own personal experience, but I don't think it's bad to not want to have kids. I think it's a very sacred calling, but I also feel like it's a sacred calling to not have kids. I think that we need those other support people just as much as we need mothers and parents. Like, we need to have other folks in the community who will help those kids and help those mothers and just like raise everybody. It really does take a village, and we're very much like detribalized and destabilized. We don't have a village. We don't have people to support us. And I don't think we ever are going to unless we like take a step back and learn how to put more community support in. And that might look like not everybody having kids, and that's totally okay.
I'm definitely a no biological kids lady. I'm not going to, and that's entirely like my choice and like the route that I want to go in life, because everybody else has done a lot of the hard work for me, and they're doing a lot of the other hard work that I don't have to do. I just have to show up and nurture these beings, and then they go home. Like I hang out with them, we do whatever we're going to do, and then they go home to their mom and dad. Like being an auntie is just fine. But one of the things that I think society doesn't really recognize is that we are like pack animals. Like, we developed having kids at such a rapid rate because we were community oriented. Whenever a kid was born, it was with mom for a while, but eventually that kid was with all the other kids. And there were people who were just in charge of taking care of the kids. Mom would go do her task, dad would go do his task, and there were people that were just keepers of the kids and hanging out with them. So I think that a lot of our generation talks about how we don't have grannies anymore. Like, grandma's not coming to pick up the kids and take them to McDonald's. Grandma's not showing up to be like, hey, man, you look tired. Let me take these kids for the weekend. But I think if people try to pressure you into having kids, you should ask them some of the questions that I have just as being a step parent. What do you do if they're not doing their homework? Because, like, we're not going to do anything violent to them. Like, what do you do? Like, you want us all to have kids, you better give us some answers on how to make things work,
Yeah. I mean, but then too, like, there's just so many things in life that you can't control as well. Like, I think one of the hardest things I've been through as a parent is I used to have 5 children and my youngest child passed away. And then I had to walk all of my children through this grief journey while I was also drowning. Like, I was drowning after that experience. It was the hardest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then I just like woke up every morning and looked at these 4 little faces and was like, we're alive. It's another day. Let's make some food and like just do the best that we can. But like, we were all healing in that moment. And that was very difficult. And I will say I had a lot of family and like community support and people who stepped up to help me in that moment. But like, people don't think about that as well. Like, you could have a child and they might pass away. That might be another one of your family's initiations or stories. And like, I don't want to be weird or morbid, but like, life is so beautiful and sacred and just uncertain that like, you shouldn't bring a life into this world unless you're like really sure about it. Like, it should feel like a calling to you where you're like, I really want this, I really thought about it. I really feel a spiritual calling inside of myself where I want to bring a life to this planet.
My spiritual calling is to not. But like, I also think that you do have a kid. You have a really big baby right now, and we're all coming together to be like, yes, let's take part in this baby's
4.
life.
Baby's got it.
Right.
She's lovely. Yeah. Yeah, no, we definitely have talked about that, especially at the first year with my business partner, Jason Turner, who's still my business partner and production lead and amazing friend. And then Kyle, who has since passed. But that first year, we literally were like, we're birthing this baby. It's happening. Like, as we're building the stage, and like, those were the daddies, and I'm the mom, and now Brian's stepdad. And like, it literally is this human creation. I mean, and I feel that. And I feel like I've always liked kids. That's the thing. It's like, it's not that I don't like kids. I think sometimes they're annoying. But yeah, I mean, most humans are annoying sometimes. It's not just kids, but like, I remember my mom growing up when I was younger, she worked at a preschool, and it was like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And I loved going to help her and like hang out with the little kids and all the funny things they would say. I remember I was a camp counselor for a long time at this place called Camp Happy Lake. And we would sing songs and teach them how to do basic, build a fire or whatever. And I loved it. Like, I love being around kids. My brother actually has 4 daughters, which is wild. And then my sister has a daughter as well. So I'm an aunt. I got lots of kids in my family. And then my younger brother, this is weird, he's 18 now, but he actually lived with me for about a year, for reasons. But it was when he was 13, and it was during the pandemic. So, yeah, I got to talk about homework. Oh, it's all homework. It's all homework. You do all of it.
So hard.
So, yeah, that was quite the experience with a 13-year-old boy. But we are closer because of it, and I'm really proud of him. He's actually about to graduate high school in like 2 months, which is really wild. But yeah, for me, the birthing process has always been like, nope. The carrying the baby and like birthing the baby, that part, and like having a baby that can't communicate with you. Like, it's totally reliant on you. Like 100%.
They are reliant, but they do communicate, Like they have their own like body language and their own cues. That's something that we help teach parents as doulas, is like understanding their baby's cues and how they communicate. Like, they don't use English language the way that we do. They can't be like, hey, Mom, I'm hungry. But they do communicate for sure. But I think there's a lot of like maybe fear involved with birth because, again, we're not living in our village setting where humans are supposed to be living. And like, I mean, by this time, we're all old ladies in this room in a village setting. We should have been to a couple births helping other women in the village out. But like, that's just not the society we live in. So I think a lot of people do feel a lot of fear about it. And I think that birth is very sacred. It's definitely like a ceremony. It's definitely a rite of passage, but it's also not something that you should be doing alone. And whether that's, the birth of a business or a beautiful project or the birth of a child, like, we really need to find ways to better support each other and to also just like show up. I know that it's weird. Like, we don't know what community might look like because we don't really have community. So we have to work on building that. We have to work on accepting help. We have to work on being okay when people show up. We have to work on being okay when people bring you a casserole and maybe it doesn't taste great. It's not like what you would make for yourself, but like just being able to accept help and, to be around other people while they're experiencing these transitions, I think would take that, like, demystify it pretty much and like take a lot of the fear out, and people would feel a lot safer and better about all of these transitions if we actually just like were human and supported each other. Like I said, I've been a doula for 10 years, but I tell everybody I think that that's the silliest job in the world, that I just show up for people when they are going to have their babies or give birth, or I show up for them after and take care of their babies and take care of them as, a family. And I'm like, man, we should have grannies and things like that. I can't believe people pay me to do something that is like so human. But anyways, I hope that through having conversations like this, that maybe my job becomes obsolete.
Yeah. And I think it's also, you had touched on it earlier, where it's like, I feel like people don't really talk about like postpartum. That has always, I've dealt with depression since I can remember. And that has been a big reason why I'm like, have been terrified in the past of like, what if that happens to me? And like, I mean, I feel like people just don't talk about it. And when they have, it's like, wow, thank you for talking about it. And then I have like watched some documentaries or different like research that way. But I actually found out, I think it was last summer, my sister had told me that a conversation that she had with our dad, that apparently after I was born, I'm my mom's firstborn, that she dealt with all kinds of mental health issues. And looking back, like, a lot of our childhood makes a lot of sense. And she definitely was there for us in the capacity that she could be. But I mean, she has no relationship with 4 of her 4 children at this point. So that's how, she didn't get support. So that's where she got where she is now.
She was probably living without a village.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, but I feel like that's pretty much normal. So if you're like, hey, maybe I don't want to do that, that's normal, because like we need to work on our systems and our community first, and really make sure that we all feel good and supported, because it's hard to want to bring a soul to this world when you don't feel that support, or you already feel like you're struggling and overwhelming when it's just you. But like, it's normal to feel that way because we're not supported.
Well, maybe a part 2 for this section, but thank you guys for coming on today and talking about all of the things. You just have so much knowledge and areas that I kind of know a little bit about, but excited to learn more about. So thank you. What is your next event you have coming up? I think there's one tomorrow.
We're doing a wisdom circle tomorrow, and we do monthly wisdom circles and cacao circles up in Edmond. So
perfect. Well, thank you. And we are definitely going to have a part 2, I feel.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We appreciate being here.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Goddess Awakening. Check out our Linktree in the description for all our socials and upcoming events. This podcast is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.